Okay, students, welcome back. This is second flip classroom video for the Renaissance. We're going to be talking about the problems facing the Catholic Church during what's called the Counter-Reformation. So in class this week, we have discussed what the Protestant Reformation was. We have discussed the problems that face the Catholic Church. We've discussed what the fundamental tenets of Lutheranism and Calvinism are. We also in class compared the Roman Catholic and the Lutheran beliefs. We've also compared them with the Calvinist beliefs. We've also compared and contrasted the two dominant religions of Christianity, which is Catholic and Protestant. So now we need to spend a little bit of time talking about what happened after the Reformation, because the Catholic Church isn't going to go down with a fight. So remember that we said during the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church was very, very powerful. Very powerful, very strong. During the Renaissance, they begin to lose that power and prestige because of humanism and because of the scientific revolution and because of the Protestant Reformation. So now we're going to focus on today what happens with the church, what do they do to reclaim their authority. So we're going to take a look at the Catholic Reformation. We're going to take a look at the English Reformation, and we're going to take a look at basically how England ends up in shambles in the 1600s, and then we're going to end with what Europe looked like by 1760. So we're moving right along. We've covered already over the past month, we've covered about 300 years of history. So let's take a look. Our first topic will be the Catholic Reformation. So what happens? The Catholic Reformation. Well, as Protestantism spreads throughout Europe, the Catholic Church had to do something. They had to act. And if you guys remember what the definition of reform is, it means to change. So Pope Paul III convenes what's called the Council of Trent. And basically, imagine this. Imagine if a teacher or coach pulled you aside and said, listen, this is what you're doing wrong. You need to change your performance in class or change your performance on the field so that you can do better. Well, Martin Luther is that coach, and he's the one that triggers that Reformation and says, Catholic Church, this is what you need to do better. Well, it's not that peaceful, and in order to kind of quell some of the violence, there was violence between the Catholics and the Protestants, Pope Paul III convenes this Council of Trent, and they review some of their church policies. One of the policies is they reviews the policy of selling indulgences, which they end. So now the Catholic Church no longer sends those get-out-of-jail-free cards. They also have what are called Jesuits to promote Catholicism. And remember, the Renaissance is happening during the time of overseas exploration. So these Jesuits and priests are accompanying, Christopher Columbus and Vasco da Gama, and they're hoping that, well, if we're not picking up new members in the old world in Europe, maybe we can convert new people to Christianity in the New World and in Africa and in Asia. Also during this time period, again, the Renaissance, a lot of people think, the misconception is that it's a very peaceful time period. In fact, it wasn't all that peaceful. You had the Italian city-states fighting, but also in Northern Europe, you had something called the 30 Years' War. And this was the most destructive of the religious wars. You always could compare the 30 Years' War to almost a mini World War, one of the first World Wars, if you will. And like World War I and World War II, Germany was previously destroyed by this intense religious fighting. Our next topic is the English Reformation. All right, so what happens? So, number one, we have a guy by the name of Henry VIII, and he is married to a woman named Catherine of Aragon, and they have 6 kids. Of those 6 kids, only one survives. Her name is Mary. Now, the next point to understand, and this is why I have a little arrow underneath Catherine, Catherine is related to Charles V of Spain. Henry and Catherine are Protestant. Charles is Catholic. Important to understand that, because we're going to take a look at this huge rivalry between England and Spain, and one of the fundamental differences between England and Spain is that England is predominantly a Protestant country, while Spain is a Catholic country. So, Henry VIII wants to marry Anne Boleyn, okay? And the reason for this was Of those 6 kids, we said 5 of them died. Only Mary survived. Well, Mary's a woman and can't carry on the throne. It goes to the next male in kinship. So he marries Anne Boleyn because he believes that his marriage to Anne will uh, create a male heir. So he asks the Pope to annul or cancel his marriage to Catherine, and the Pope flatly says, "No, I will not do that." So Henry is at a crossroads here. Does he, stay married to Catherine and not have an heir to his throne, or does he get divorced and live in sin? Well, his answer is kind of a third option. He decides to leave the Catholic Church. So Henry marries Anne and leaves the Catholic Church. That takes us to point number 4, that Henry VIII will form the Church of England, which is the Anglican Church, which is it's got a little bit of Christianity or Catholicism in it, mixed in with a lot of the tenets of Protestantism. The chief among those beliefs is that there's no papal authority. Just like Luther and Calvin, Protestants don't recognize the authority of the Pope. But anyway, Henry forms the Church of England, and he'll actually marry 6 more times until he has a son. So, what happens next? Well, Henry VIII strengthens the Church of England, and he has a son, finally. And his name is Edward VI. Unfortunately, Edward VI dies in his teens, so he is unable to take the throne. So the only person left is his half-sister Mary. And what she tries to do is she restores Catholicism to England. Remember, her dad was a Protestant. So what Mary does is she goes around, she rounds up thousands of Protestants and burns them at the stake, giving her the nickname of Bloody Mary. So again, understand that England was a Protestant country under Henry VIII. Henry wanted to transfer power to his son, Edward, who died. So now that power is going to be transferred now to Mary, who is a Catholic, and she is going to turn England into a Catholic country. Well, guys, groups of Protestants are very, very fearful, and one of the results of this religious movement, think about it, guys, this is what's so remarkable about European history in this time period, is that a group of Puritans leave England and they go to this new land, America. And it's kind of special that we just celebrated Thanksgiving, and that was the idea of when the Puritans left England to come to the New World. Well, they left England for religious reasons. They left it because they were being persecuted by Mary. Unfortunately, Mary dies, and her half-sister, the next in kin, Elizabeth, takes over. Now, Elizabeth is a Protestant, and she's also a moderate. And what she does is she will grant religious toleration to both Protestants and Catholics. Now, again, I'm just giving you kind of the bigger picture, but you're going to have to fill in the details in your guided readings for homework. And you actually will be able to take, when you guys go to college, you'll have all sorts of interesting classes on this time period in England's history. So, let's take a look at what religion looked like by 1760. So we've got Christianity up at the top. Christianity is broken down into 2 subgroups. We have Roman Catholic and we have Protestantism. The dominant Protestant faith is now called Lutheranism. If you mix a little bit of Roman Catholic with Protestantism, you will get the Church of England, which is also evolves into Anglicanism. Lutheranism, an extreme form of Lutheranism, is called Calvinism. And some of the Calvinist beliefs and the Church of England's belief are called the Puritans. French Calvinists are called the Huguenots. And another group is called the Anabaptists. So take a look, guys, because this is tremendous. Prior to the Renaissance, you had Christianity, the Roman Catholic Church. After the Renaissance, you now have the Protestant faith, which is Lutheranism, Calvinism, the Puritans, the Huguenots, the Anabaptists, the Church of England, and the Anglicans. One group we haven't talked about, here you go, Judaism. Even though Catholics and Protestants will hate each other, the Jews were hated and persecuted by all Christians. And as a matter of fact, this book down here, it's a quote called, or the title is called "On the Jews and Their Lies," and this was published by none other than Martin Luther. So remember, think back to the Middle Ages when Jews were being blamed for a lot of the religious turmoil in Europe, especially with regard to the plague. Now they're even being persecuted even more. So your takeaway point is down here, the big picture. By the end of the Renaissance and Reformation, religious conflicts dominate Europe's power struggle, and that's going to set the stage for everything that comes in the next 2 centuries. And here we have just a map of Europe. Okay, the light pink is the Protestant faith, Lutherans. So that's Norway, Sweden, kind of Wittenberg, northern Germany. The purple is Calvinist. Now this is kind of extreme Lutheranism, as we said. And we've got Calvinism in Scotland, parts of the Netherlands, parts of Switzerland, and Catholic, which is still mostly dominant of Southern Europe. Hungary, Austria, Italy, France, Spain, Ireland are still Catholic countries. And here you've got little towns, the Huguenots, all broken out in France. And then England is Anglican, the Church of England. All right. If you guys have any questions about the Counter-Reformation and the religious changes in Europe, please post those questions onto Edmodo. You can always watch this video again or ask questions in class, because this is a very important takeaway point. And again, I'm just giving you the big picture now. We'll fill in the details in class later this week. All righty, guys. Keep up the good work.